All right, so we've got, I think, 5 questions on this week's Q&A right here that I'm about to break down for you, as well as one from last week that Chuck asked. So let me break down Chuck's question. Actually 2 weeks ago, excuse me, because nobody actually had a question for this week's Q&A, this past week's Q&A. So hopefully that means the course is doing its job and everybody's seeing results and they don't have many questions. So I'm gonna take it as a positive, okay? Now, as always, if you guys have any questions that you want me to answer for this week's Q&A, I will actually drop this week's Q&A question to remind you on Sunday. Most of the time, I think it's Sunday. Sometimes I forget and I drop it Monday morning. But if you don't want to wait for that and you want to make sure that I answer your question in next week's Q&A, drop it on this video right here. I would love to answer it for you, okay? So Chuck actually asked in the last one, he said he'd like to know more about brand restrictions. So for example, if there's an IP alert, so I think he's using the Scan Unlimited plugin, or he might actually have the IP alert plugin. Both of them are great, although the Scan Unlimited plugin is 100% free and you don't have to pay for it, so I'd recommend going that route. But regardless of which one he's using, he's saying that if he gets a notice that there's an IP alert on a brand like Marvel, right? Is it still all right if he buys 10 more of those quantity to sell on Amazon? Or is it still possible to get an IP alert or an IP claim on those items? Basically, he's saying, hey, I'm looking at, a product or a brand like Marvel, right? Now, I know that I have an authorized manufacturer or distributor of it in EE distribution or whatever wholesale company you're using, right? So he has the authorized manufacturer of it that he can source and use that, drawing a blank here, that invoice of 10 plus quantity to get ungated, okay? But is it still all right if they're still hitting IP alerts on that brand, or should he avoid it? So in short, is it okay? Yes, you can sell it if you have the actual invoice showing 10 plus quantity, then you're golden. However, in my opinion, and different people look at this differently, you do have the valid sourcing chain, so you could always prove it, right? You could always, show that invoice to Amazon or show that invoice to Marvel if you ever run into an issue or something like that, saying, hey, I sourced it from this place, I sourced it as a reputable manufacturer, I sourced it from a valid sourcing chain, I bought 10 plus quantity, I'm allowed to sell this on Amazon, I don't deserve, an authenticity claim, I don't deserve an IP claim, whatever it is. So yes, you can sell it. That's the short answer. Now, should you sell it? It really depends on your seller account, number one, how much, IP claims or copyright claims or any alerts that you have on your account currently and your seller health. It also depends on the potential margin. So if the margin's like ridiculous, which obviously we both know that if you're selling wholesale, a lot of the times the margins aren't ridiculous. They're very, very slim, or they might be good, but they might be high competition. So it's usually one or the other. Very, very rarely do you get something that's a ridiculous margin that nobody's selling that you have access to, unless you have a really, really, really low key, manufacturer or wholesaler that not many people know about, okay? So because you're probably sourcing this from e-distribution, I would venture to assume that it's either competitive or the margin's relatively low. So I would say just avoid that so you don't run into the issue of getting a potential IP claim if IP Alert or Scan Unlimited's Google Chrome plugin is alerting you that this is a brand that has a history of filing IP claims on that actual listing and in the past. I would just avoid it because there's probably better products that don't come with IP alerts that you can go after. So that's my answer. In short, yes, you're allowed to. You could always prove it if you have to. But, realistically, you should probably avoid it just because there's probably better products out there that you can sell with higher margins that don't come with any alerts, okay? So that answers Chuck's question from the last one. Let's move on. Charles has a question here. He says, is it tacky to reuse an Amazon box for selling items on eBay? Any advice on making eBay listings stand out in terms of keywords? So yeah, there's a lot of different, advice in the actual eBay module. So for lack of, keeping this video relatively short and not making it like hours and hours long, I would just suggest checking out the eBay seller tips module, which I forget what actual number that is. I can find it really fast. There's a lot of great seller tips and a lot of softwares in there that will actually help you to kind of see your competition, see other listings that you're competing against, so you can model your listings and basically steal their keywords, steal their SEO and all sorts of things like that. But in short, yeah, you just want to you want a really good detailed description, everything that you can get. You want really, really quality images. Save your images as the actual title and all the keywords too to rank higher in SEO. So you get the metadata, right? Also, you want to copy the specs from items that have sold like that in the past. So if you want to make sure that it's the same item or very, very similar, right? So if you see, for example, let's go back to the Marvel from Chuck's example, right? Let's say, for example, you see a Marvel item on eBay that's sold, that's your exact item. You want to list one like that on there so you steal the specs. That's the easiest way to get, keywords and something in your listing. Let me find the eBay seller tips module for you. It's one of the middle modules. It is module 14, tips to sell more on eBay. Now there's 6 different video modules there, but 2 of those are, I don't know why I just held up a 3, wow. 2 of those are longer ones that are gonna help you, both the last 2, so Revolutionary Product Research and Competitor Research Tool will really help you research your competitors to see what their products are, what their listings look like, and you can get keyword ideas from them if you really want to. And the Revolutionary Sourcing Insights Tool is something else that's kind of irrelevant to your question, but definitely something that you're gonna wanna look into if you plan on scaling eBay up a lot. So that module will really, really help you, and then obviously all the tips ahead of that as well. We'll go back over keywords and selling more on eBay and help you out that way. So I really hope that helps, Charles. But in short, 3 things that you can do: make sure that your title's good, make sure that your description's good, and you're also saving your pictures with the metadata and the keywords in them. And then, relist one like it and copy the specs from a listing that's already sold, because those specifications on that item are what allowed it to index on eBay to get the sale in the first place. So if you copy those, that will really help you out. So moving on to the next one, Ricardo says, how do you handle when Amazon splits your shipment? Example, I was sending 26 books in, Amazon split the shipment to 25 in a box and 1 in the other box, increasing the cost of shipping. So there's 2 ways to basically do this. You can elect to, I forget what it's actually called because I actually don't ever use it, but if they actually split it up, you can elect to put it all in the same box and they will charge you for that, okay? So you really need to figure out I forget what that's called actually, because like I said, I never actually use it. It's basically just you elect to send them all to the same FBA warehouse and they charge you a fee for, electing to do that. You can do that in the back end of your Seller Central when you're actually initiating an FBA shipment, although I, like I said, never do that. So that you have to kind of weigh out whether the increase in shipping the one, obviously it's annoying to be like, hey, there's 25 going to one prep center and 1 item going to the other. So like, what's the point? Why can't I just put the one in the 25 box and make it 26? You have to weigh the options on like, okay, I'm charged like $5 for the 25 box and like $7 for the 1 box, because maybe it's going further across the country, right? And add them up and then factor in, okay, but if I pay for, and it's gonna depend obviously on how many you're shipping into different places or how many are actually in your shipment, which if you're shipping to like 5 different places, it's probably gonna be more expensive, to ship to 5 different places rather than electing to ship them all to 1 and just paying the fee, right? Although if you're just shipping to 2, often it can be cheaper to just ship to 2 warehouses instead of choosing to ship it all to 1, right? So you really need to weigh each of those options and decide which is cheaper for you, depending on your shipments and depending on which FBA warehouses and where you're sending them to, okay? Now, because I don't ever actually elect to do that, what I basically do is that happens to me all the time. And if you still actually, and you said you're sending in books, so your margins are probably relatively high with those books. If you still factor it in, let's say that hypothetically you said 25 in a box and 1 in another, so that's 26 books in total. Maybe you got charged, let's go higher. Let's say you got charged $8 to ship, the 25 books in to one place, and you got charged even $10, right? Even $10 to ship that 1 book to California if you live on the East Coast, or maybe to the East Coast if you live on the West Coast, or whatever it is, right? That's still only 18 bucks that you're paying to ship 26 books in. So if I pull up a calculator really fast, it's still very, 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 very cheap per product. So your margins aren't really getting cut into really at all, okay? It's annoying, I'll give you that. It definitely annoys me too, but it's really still cheap. So it's gonna cost you a little bit under 70 cents per book to ship those in, and that's very, very cheap still. So that's why I always recommend, like when you're estimating your profit margins, either go 50 cents to $1, because that's and if you want to be more conservative, always go $1, because that's pretty much going to cover any costs like that. And and if you, for whatever reason, go a little bit higher where it breaks your shipments in, then obviously you've already estimated that, right? But $1, it depends on what books you're shipping in, obviously, but $1 or 70 cents per book, your margins are still gonna be very, very high. So that's my short answer. Another better answer for you if you don't want to obviously elect to send them all to the same prep center for a fee, or you don't want to approach it like I just said, is wait to send more books in, right? So if you have 26, wait till 50, right? Or wait till 100 and just, get a bunch of inventory and save it up for like 2 weeks and then send it all in together as like 100 units or like 50 units so that, hey, if they break it up to multiple prep centers, then it might be like 20 per one prep center and then like a 10 for the other and then like 5 for the other. And then it's a little bit more justifiable to ship, 10 units to one prep center instead of just one, okay? So I hope that helps, Ricardo, but that was a great question. I get it, it's annoying, but your margins, for my guess, would still be relatively high. So I wouldn't really worry about it if that's the case. Now, Richard says, beginner question, is it possible to send a shipment of many different items into Amazon? I mean, a shipment, for example, of 10 grocery items or 12 grocery items, 10 video games, 12 books, 12 CDs. Do they go in the same box or separate boxes? Thanks in advance. So it really depends. In short, you can send them all in the same box, right? You can send them all, it doesn't really matter. Now, the longer answer would be you really need to, because you said something about grocery items, you said something about books and CDs and video games. So it really depends on the breakability of those and how well you're prepping your boxes as well. So that's definitely something that you want to keep in mind. So for example, if you're shipping in like breakable grocery products, you might not want to ship them in with a bunch of heavy books. So those are things that you're going to have to consider. You can elect to ship them in and initiate shipments, separately if you want. But in short, if you're not worried about the breakability of items or, them going bad or not being refrigerated or anything like that, then yes, you can ship them all in. Just make sure that you prep your box as well. Use, bubble wrap and all that good stuff so that your boxes are kind of tight and they're protected. And then you can ship them all in together. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so Jacob now says, I am just now about to start selling on Amazon. I've checked to see if I'm able to sell some of the items that I found and gotten this message. Due to limited account activity, your ability to create listings has been disabled. To restore your ability to create listings, please click on Replace Charge Method to either add a new card or select an existing credit card processing. So I actually never read this one before. It looks like I didn't even like it, so I might not have seen it. But in short, it honestly sounds like you just need to change your credit card. So the reason that they're asking you to do that is because in most cases when you have a credit card or you have an account balance, they're gonna take it off your account balance, but because you don't have an updated credit card and you don't have you haven't sold a bunch of things, so there's an account balance there for them to deduct, they just wanna make sure that you can actually pay for the shipment, it sounds like. So in that case, I would say just change your credit card or update your bank to your relevant recent bank, and then you should be pretty good because they just want to make sure that there's a card on file there that they can charge and authorize to charge if for whatever reason you don't sell those items so that they can charge you for the shipping, right? So I would say just update your card or update it to a new bank account and then retry that. That sounds like it would work, Jacob. So Jacob actually has an added on question here. He says, has anyone gotten this message before? I've read it on forums that people have trouble with it after the 48 hours, thanks. So I think I just answered that. I've actually personally never seen that because I started Amazon a long time ago, so it's been a long time since I've had to update my card or anything like that and run into that issue. That said, like I said, just make sure you update your card or you update your bank account that's attached to your seller account. It sounds like they just want to make sure that you have a legitimate card or a legitimate bank account that they can charge if they need to charge you, for that actual shipment on your account balance, because when you ship that into FBA, it's going to go negative, right? You're going to have a negative account balance. And then as you sell things over the 2-week span that they pay you out, that account balance will go up to positive and then they'll end up owing you money, right? But if you don't sell any of those items, then you're going to stay negative and they're going to need to charge you at the end of those 2 weeks. When they pay you out, you're going to owe them, not the other way around, right? And that's assuming that you don't sell anything, which obviously is very, very rare. If you're sourcing any decent products, you're going to sell them, and depending on how many products you're shipping in, you're probably only going to owe $6 to like 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks or whatever if you're shipping a lot of things in and a lot of packages. So just update your card. Hope that helps, man. So that answers all the questions for this week's Q&A. I hope that it helps, guys. If you have any questions whatsoever for next week's Q&A that you want me to answer in video format, drop them on this as well, and I will see you in the next one.